The bright blue light of Earth's first functional faster-than-light drive engine filled the launch bay as Captain John Miller walked the length of the EAS Discovery. His footsteps echoed in the massive chamber as engineers made final adjustments to the ship that would carry humanity's hopes to the stars. "Captain on deck," called out Lieutenant Ryan Ford, standing straight as Miller approached. "At ease, Lieutenant," Miller said with a small smile. "How's our girl looking today?" "Ready for her big moment, sir. Dr. Williams is already aboard running final checks on the first contact protocols." Miller nodded and climbed the boarding ramp. The inside of the Discovery hummed with activity as crew members rushed through last-minute preparations. This wasn't just another test flight. Intelligence from deep space probes had confirmed the existence of an organized galactic community, a council of some sort. Today, humanity would announce itself to the wider universe. "Doctor," Lisa Williams looked up from her station as Miller entered the bridge. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and stress lines marked her face after weeks of minimal sleep. "Captain," she greeted him. "The xenolinguistic programs are loaded and ready. If these council species use any form of logical language structure, we should be able to establish basic communication." "And if they don't?" Miller asked. Williams shrugged. "Then we'll have to get creative. That's what humans do best, right?" 6 hours later, the Discovery arrived at the coordinates specified in the automated message humans had intercepted months ago. A massive space station hanging like a jewel against the backdrop of an unfamiliar solar system. The structure dwarfed their ship, stretching nearly 20 miles from end to end in a spiral pattern unlike anything human architects had designed. "My God," whispered Communications Officer Pam Green. "It's beautiful." "And old," added Miller, noting the visible layers of different construction styles. "Very old." A signal came through on their communications array. The universal translator stuttered for a moment before producing words the humans could understand. "Unidentified vessel, you have entered Council space. Identify yourself and state your purpose." Miller straightened his uniform and nodded to Green. "This is Captain John Miller of the Earth Alliance ship Discovery. We come in peace as representatives of humanity, seeking diplomatic contact with the Galactic Council." There was a long pause. Miller exchanged glances with Williams, who shrugged. "Earth vessel," the voice finally replied. "You will be guided to Docking Bay 17. Prepare to receive boarding instructions." The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. The Discovery docked at the massive station, and the human delegation, Miller, Williams, and 3 other specialists, were escorted through winding corridors by silent, multi-limbed beings with translucent skin. They finally arrived at a vast chamber where representatives of at least 24 alien species sat in tiered seating around a central platform. Miller tried not to stare, but the diversity was overwhelming. Beings of all shapes, sizes, and apparent biological compositions watched the humans with expressions ranging from curiosity to what might have been disgust. A tall, blue-skinned figure with silver eyes approached. "I am Ambassador Zorax of the Vexari Confederation, appointed to handle initial contact with your species. Welcome to Council Station Prime." Miller extended his hand, then awkwardly withdrew it when Zorax made no move to reciprocate. "Thank you for receiving us, Ambassador. We're eager to establish peaceful relations." "Indeed," Zorax said, voice cool and measured. "The Council has been observing your civilization since you developed nuclear capabilities. Your petition for membership will be heard, though I must inform you that newly spacefaring species typically begin with protected status rather than full membership." Dr. Williams stepped forward. "Protected status? What exactly does that entail?" A smaller, orange-skinned alien with large, expressive eyes joined them. "It means the Council would ensure no harm comes to your people while you mature." The alien said, "I am Counselor Neem of the Thulian Collective. Unlike my colleague, I believe in being direct with newcomers." "Mature?" Miller's voice carried a hint of offense. "With respect, Counselor, humanity has a rich civilization, thousands of years old." Zorax made a sound that might have been a laugh. Captain Miller, the youngest council member race, has been spacefaring for over 7,000 years. The eldest for nearly 1,000,000. Your kind achieved powered flight barely 2 centuries ago. Before Miller could respond, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Council members rose from their seats as security personnel rushed in. "What's happening?" Williams asked. Neem's large eyes narrowed. "Draconid ships have breached our outer defenses." "Impossible. They wouldn't dare attack Council." "Station Prime." The chamber shook as something impacted the station. Zorax was already moving toward a protected exit, but many council members seemed frozen in shock. "Is there an evacuation plan?" Miller asked sharply. When no one immediately answered, he turned to his team. "Dr. Williams, help these people to safety. Lieutenant Ford, with me." Without waiting for permission, Miller accessed the station's public information terminal, quickly locating a station map. "Ford, it looks like security armaments are stored here," he said, pointing. "Let's move," Zorax called after them. "This is not your concern, humans. Our security forces will handle this." Miller ignored him, leading Ford through the corridors. They reached the security station to find several guards already down, and 3 reptilian figures, Draconids, Miller assumed, attempting to override the station's defense systems. The Draconids were tall, heavily armored, and carried energy weapons that had already left scorch marks on the walls. They turned as the humans entered, hissing in surprise. "No weapons," Ford muttered. "Improvise," Miller replied, grabbing a maintenance tool from a nearby panel. What followed shocked the council security officers, who arrived minutes later. Despite being outgunned and facing physically superior opponents, the 2 humans moved with unexpected speed and coordination. Miller used the environment to create distractions while Ford outflanked their opponents. Within moments, 2 Draconids were unconscious, and the third found himself pinned to the floor, Miller's improvised weapon at his throat. "Surrender," Miller said calmly, as though subduing armed aliens was something he did every Tuesday. When council security finally arrived, led by Zorax and Neem, they found the humans had not only neutralized the immediate threat, but had also begun restoring the station's defensive shields. "How did you?" Zorax began. "Basic tactical assessment," Miller said, helping a wounded security officer into a chair. "They were focused on the control panel, not the entrances. Rookie mistake." Later, as the Discovery crew helped with emergency repairs, Neem approached Williams. "Your captain and lieutenant acted without hesitation," the Thulian said. "Most new species freeze when confronted with unexpected violence." Williams smiled slightly. "Humans adapt quickly. It's kind of our thing." Across the room, Zorax was speaking with a high-ranking council member, gesturing toward the humans with what appeared to be concern. "Your colleague doesn't seem impressed," Williams noted. Neem's eyes followed her gaze. "Ambassador Zorax believes your quick action was mere luck. I'm not so certain." The alien paused, seemed to consider something, then added, "There's an old council saying, 'Judge not the sapient by their tools, but by how they use them when the pattern breaks.'" "And how did we do?" Williams asked. Neem's expression was unreadable. "That remains to be seen, Dr. Williams. That remains to be seen." 6 months had passed since first contact. The Earthship Discovery had returned home, and now a proper diplomatic mission had been established on Council Station Prime. General Susan Clark stood at the viewport of the human embassy, watching the slow dance of ships coming and going from the massive station. At 52, with salt and pepper hair cut in a practical style, Clark had served in Earth's military for 30 years before being selected as military liaison to the Council. "Beautiful view, isn't it?" said Alan Brooks as he joined her. The young diplomatic aide carried 2 cups of coffee, a luxury item that had become surprisingly popular among certain Council species. "Too beautiful," Clark said, accepting the coffee. 6 months of negotiations, and we're still classified as a protected species. Something doesn't add up. Brooks nodded. Ambassador Miller feels the same way. The Council claims it's standard procedure, but their actions suggest otherwise. The random inspections? The accidental security breaches? The so-called pirate attacks on our supply ships? Clark counted off. "They're testing us, Brooks." The question is, why? Their conversation was interrupted by a soft chime from the communication panel. Brooks answered it, then turned to Clark with a frown. Emergency meeting with High Chancellor Kelvik in 30 minutes. Apparently there's been an incident at Mining Outpost 7. Mining Outpost 7 was humanity's first joint operation with the Council. A small asteroid mining facility, staffed by 20 humans and a dozen alien technicians. Clark had visited it just last week and found everything in good order. What kind of incident, she asked. They wouldn't say, just that it's urgent. 90 minutes later, Clark sat in a Council emergency response center, watching footage of the outpost. A coolant leak had exposed 3 sections to lethal radiation. Council engineers estimated that the 15 people trapped inside, 10 humans, and 5 aliens, had less than 6 hours before radiation exposure would kill them. Standard evacuation procedures will take at least 8 hours, said High Chancellor Kelvik, a tall, thin alien with silvery skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. I regret to inform you that survival prospects are minimal. Clark studied the station schematics. What about using the maintenance tunnels to reach the emergency shuttles? The radiation levels would be fatal within minutes, replied one of the Council engineers. Not if we improvise radiation shielding, Clark said. Look, the outpost has a water reclamation system. If we drain it and use the tanks as movable shields, we could create a safe path. Kelvik's expression was unreadable. An interesting suggestion, General, but impractical. The protocols for such emergencies are clear. With respect, Chancellor, Clark interrupted. Protocols won't save those people. Action will. She stood up. I'm contacting our team at the outpost. What followed was a demonstration of human innovation that left the Council observers stunned. Clark coordinated with the humans at the outpost, who quickly implemented her shielding plan with modifications suggested by the trapped miners themselves. They drained the water system, used the tanks as mobile radiation shields, and created a human chain to move the injured aliens to safety first, then the remaining humans. Against all Council predictions, every person was evacuated with only minor radiation exposure. As the last shuttle departed the outpost, Clark noticed something odd on one of the monitors. A small device attached to the coolant system that didn't match any standard component. Brooks, she said quietly, get me the maintenance logs for that outpost. I want to know every person who accessed that coolant system in the past month. You think this wasn't an accident? Brooks said. It wasn't a question. Clark's eyes met his. I think we're being evaluated and I want to know why. Across the station, in a secure meeting room, High Chancellor Kelvik reviewed the outcome with several Council members and a small, featureless alien known only as Agent Mira. Remarkable, said one Council member. They adapted to a critical failure scenario with a solution outside all standard protocols, and they succeeded. Just as they did during the Draconid attack, added another. And the navigation failure near Sector 12. Kelvik turned to Agent Mira. Your assessment? Mira's voice was flat, emotionless. Human problem-solving abilities continue to exceed projections. They do not think in linear patterns like most Council species. When faced with a crisis, they become more focused, not less. They improvise with whatever materials are available. Most concerning, they instinctively prioritize group survival over individual risk. Meaning, Kelvik pressed, the Thulians adapt through advanced technology. The Vexari adapt through social structures. Humans adapt through behavior. Immediate, unpredictable changes in tactics based on environmental conditions. Mira paused. In the 3 crisis scenarios we have engineered, humans have demonstrated problem-solving approaches that appear in no Council tactical database. Kelvik's silver skin rippled with concern. Continue the tests. I want to see how they respond to a life support failure. Meanwhile, in Earth's embassy, Clark and Brooks had discovered a pattern. Each accident involving human ships or facilities had been preceded by unusual maintenance checks or unscheduled inspections. They're testing our responses, Clark said, looking at the evidence laid out before them. The question is, are they trying to determine if we're worthy of membership or if we're a threat. Brooks considered this. Maybe both. The Council has existed for thousands of years, maintaining peace through strict protocols and standardized responses. Then we show up, improvising solutions and ignoring their carefully established procedures. Because their procedures weren't working, Clark pointed out. That's how we see it, Brooks said. But from their perspective, unpredictability might be the most dangerous trait a species can possess. Clark's communication device chimed. She answered it, listened for a moment, then looked at Brooks with concern. There's a problem at the embassy residence station. Life support is failing on 3 decks, including the one with the children's school. Brooks stood immediately. That's over 60 kids, plus teachers and resident staff. Clark was already moving toward the door. And I bet the Council's standard protocols would take too long to evacuate everyone safely. You think this is another test? Clark's expression hardened. I'm certain of it. And this time, they've gone too far. Let's show them exactly what humans do when our children are threatened. As they hurried to the transport, neither noticed the small, nondescript alien watching them from the shadows. Agent Mira, recording every word, every expression, every reaction for the Council's growing file on humanity's capabilities. In her secure communication to High Chancellor Kelvik, Mira would later note, unlike previous tests, this scenario generated an immediate emotional response alongside tactical planning. Monitoring suggests increased heart rates, stress hormones, and neural activity, yet improved decision-making speed. Preliminary conclusion. Humans do not simply tolerate crisis conditions. In some ways, they function better within them. Recommend highest caution classification. High Chancellor Kelvik received this report with growing unease. The tests had been designed to expose human weaknesses. Instead, they were revealing capabilities that hadn't been seen in the galaxy for thousands of years, not since the dark times before the Council's formation. A year had passed since Earth joined the Galactic Council as a probationary member. After the series of accidents that tested human response capabilities, relations had stabilized. Humanity had proven resourceful enough to earn basic trading, rights and permission to establish colonies on 3 uninhabited planets within Council space. Commander Eric Peterson stood on the bridge of the EAS Defender, Earth's newest warship. Though small by Council standards, the Defender incorporated both human innovation and limited Council technology that Earth had been permitted to use. Status report, Peterson said, running a hand through his short brown hair. At 38, he was young for his command, but his quick thinking during the Mars colony crisis had earned him this position. Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez looked up from his console. All systems normal, sir. We're on schedule for the diplomatic escort to Thulian Prime. Peterson nodded. The mission was simple. Escort Earth's diplomatic team to a cultural exchange on the Thulian homeworld. A routine assignment meant to show the Council that humans could follow protocol. Dr. Karen White joined him at the viewport. As a military historian specializing in ancient Earth warfare, she had been added to the crew to help understand Council military doctrine. Beautiful, isn't it? She said, indicating the stars. Hard to believe there's trouble brewing out there. Trouble? Peterson asked. Just rumors from the Council military liaisons. Something about increased Draconid activity along the outer borders. Before Peterson could reply, an emergency signal blared through the ship's communication system. Lieutenant Rodriguez worked quickly to isolate the transmission. Sir, it's a distress call from Halix 4. They're under attack by Draconid forces. Halix 4? Peterson frowned. That's a Council agricultural world. Patch it through. The view screen filled with the image of a Thulian official, panic evident in his large eyes. This is Governor Lim of Halix 4. We are under heavy bombardment. From Draconid warships, our defenses are failing. Council response teams estimate arrival in 7 hours. We will not survive that long. Any vessels in range, please assist. The transmission ended abruptly. Peterson turned to his navigation officer. How far are we from Halix 4? 40 minutes at maximum speed, sir. Peterson hesitated. Their orders were clear. Proceed directly to Thulian Prime. Deviation required authorization from Earth Command. Sir, Dr. White said quietly, Helix 4 has a population of 12 million, mostly civilians. Peterson made his decision. Set course for Helix 4 maximum speed. Alert the Horizon and Venture to follow our lead. Rodriguez looked up in surprise. Sir, that's against protocol. We're supposed to get authorization from... I'm aware, Lieutenant. Log my decision and the reasons for it. I'll face the consequences later. Peterson turned to communications. Send a message to Earth Command informing them of our course change. Then contact the Council fleet. Tell them we're responding to the distress call and will attempt to hold position until they arrive. 43 minutes later, the 3 human ships dropped out of FTL travel near Helix 4. The scene that greeted them was chaos. 5 massive Draconid warships bombarded the planet's surface, while smaller attack vessels engaged the planet's few defensive satellites. Analysis, Peterson ordered. Draconid forces outnumber us 3-1 in ship count and at least 5-1 in firepower, Rodriguez reported. Council defensive protocols would recommend withdrawal and waiting for reinforcements. Doctor, White studied the tactical display. The Draconids are following standard aggressive pattern Sigma. It's in the Council tactical database. They expect defenders to form a unified blocking formation. She looked up at Peterson. That's what they're prepared for. Peterson smiled, grimly. Then let's give them something they're not prepared for. Signal the Horizon and Venture. We're going to implement broken arrow formation. Sir? Rodriguez looked confused. That's not in the Council tactical database. No, it's not, Peterson agreed. It's based on an ancient Earth naval tactic. Dr. White can brief you while I speak with the other captains. 20 minutes later, the 3 human ships initiated their attack. Instead of forming a unified defensive line as Council doctrine dictated, they split up and attacked from 3 completely different vectors, using Helix 4's moon for cover and its gravity to accelerate their smaller ships to unexpected speeds. The Draconid forces, accustomed to the predictable responses of Council species, were thrown into confusion. Their battle computers, programmed with thousands of years of Council tactical data, couldn't predict the humans' seemingly erratic movements. The Defender flew directly toward the largest Draconid ship, then suddenly cut power, drifting dead in space. The Draconids, following their programmed responses, ignored the apparently disabled vessel to focus on the still active threats. This allowed the Defender to drift close enough to launch a concentrated attack on the enemy flagship's propulsion systems. Meanwhile, the Horizon executed a slingshot maneuver around the moon, achieving a velocity that Council ships never attempted in combat conditions. The Venture used mining explosives, not traditional weapons, to create a debris field that confused Draconid sensors. From the Council command ship Righteous Doctrine, now rushing to the scene, Council General Thorm watched the battle with growing astonishment. What are they doing? He demanded. Those maneuvers violate all tactical logic. His tactical officer, a veteran of 3 border conflicts, shook his head in disbelief. The humans are using the moon's gravity as a weapon. They're intentionally overloading their engines beyond safety parameters. They're not fighting, according to any recognized doctrine. And they're winning, Thorm said quietly. Indeed, despite being vastly outgunned, the human ships had disabled 2 Draconid vessels and forced the others to break off their planetary bombardment. The cost was high. The Horizon had suffered severe damage and the Defender's engine core was approaching critical failure from the strain of maneuvers no Council engineer would ever authorize. When the Council fleet finally arrived, they found the Draconid attackers in retreat, with 1 ship captured and 2 disabled. The 3 human vessels were damaged but intact, and the planet's major population centers had been saved. General Thorm requested immediate communication with Commander Peterson. Your actions today saved millions of lives, Thorm said, his tone a mixture of admiration and concern. But your tactics, they were unlike anything recorded in Council history. Peterson, his uniform scorched and his bridge filled with smoke from damaged systems, straightened with pride. We did what was necessary. General, where we come from, that's all that matters in battle. You risked your ships and crews on maneuvers with a less than 30% survival probability, Thorm noted. Council doctrine would never permit such risks. Dr. White stepped forward. With respect, General, humans have a saying from our military. History, who dares wins. Sometimes the unexpected approach succeeds precisely because it is deemed too risky to attempt. After the communication ended, Thorm turned to his senior aide. Prepare a full report for the High Council. Include every detail of the human tactics. They must see this. Is something wrong, General? The aide asked. Thorm watched the human ships on his view screen, remembering ancient warnings passed down through generations of Council military leaders. These humans, he said softly, they fight like the legends, like the stories of the great wars before the Council's formation. He turned away from the screen. Send the report directly to High Chancellor Kelvik. Security classification, existential concern. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was silent as the recording of the battle at Helix Thror ended. Over 300 representatives from different species sat in the curved tiers, many looking disturbed by what they had just witnessed. High Chancellor Kelvik stood at the center of the chamber, his silver skin reflecting the soft blue light. This emergency session of the Council will now discuss the human question, Kelvik announced. The defense of Helix Thror, while successful, has raised serious concerns about human military doctrine and capabilities. Frank Johnson, the human ambassador to the Council, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. At his side, Beth Rivera, Earth's cultural attaché, whispered, "They make it sound like saving 12 million lives was a bad thing." Johnson nodded slightly. To them, how we did it matters more than what we accomplished. A tall, thin figure rose from the highest tier of seats. Unlike most Council members, this being wore robes that concealed most of its features. Only glowing eyes were visible within the shadow of its hood. "The Grand Councilor Zenith wishes to address the chamber," announced Kelvik with obvious surprise. "This is most unusual." A hush fell over the assembly. Johnson leaned toward Rivera. "I've been here for 18 months and never seen this Zenith speak before. Some say he's been on the Council for over 1,000 years. Grand Councilor Zenith's voice filled the chamber without seeming to rise above a whisper. "I have reviewed the reports from Helix 4, as well as all data collected on humans since first contact. It is time we address the truth that many have sensed, but few have spoken." Aloud, the ancient being touched a control, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed Earth, rotating slowly. "This world," Zenith continued, "has hosted over 15,000 wars in its recorded history. Their technological development has been driven primarily by military necessity. In the brief century between their first powered flight and their first faster-than-light journey, they created weapons capable of destroying their entire civilization. Twice." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Zenith touched another control, and the display changed to show human DNA. More concerning is their biological nature. Humans evolved as persistence hunters, predators who would pursue prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They can regenerate from injuries that would kill most Council species. They can survive temperature ranges, radiation levels, and toxic environments that would be fatal to many of us. Ambassador Johnson stood. "With respect, Grand Councilor, humanity has moved beyond its violent past. Our wars have decreased in frequency and intensity over the past century. We seek peaceful cooperation with the Council." Zenith's glowing eyes fixed on Johnson. "I do not doubt your sincerity, Ambassador. But consider this. In the test scenarios we arranged, including life-threatening situations, humans consistently demonstrated not just survival skills, but innovation under pressure. At Helix 4, human ships performed maneuvers that our military analysts had deemed suicidally risky, yet they succeeded." From another section of the chamber, a bulky, armored figure rose. "I am Councilor Drav of the Martial Oversight Committee. The Grand Councilor speaks truth that many wish to ignore. Humans represent a pattern we have seen before." The chamber display changed again. showing ancient ruins on a world Johnson didn't recognize. Twice in our 50,000-year history, Drav continued, the Council has encountered species with humanity's particular combination of traits: adaptability, aggressive problem-solving, and capacity for violence when threatened. The first nearly destroyed half the galaxy before they were contained. The second caused the 3-century war that almost ended the Council itself. Gasps and murmurs filled the chamber. Johnson looked at Rivera in shock. This was information that had never been shared with Earth. Another Council member stood. Are you suggesting humans are a threat to galactic peace? They have followed all restrictions we placed on their expansion. They have shared their cultural achievements. Their art, music, and literature showed deep capacity for empathy. Yes, Dravi agreed, as did the others before they felt threatened. It is not that humans are inherently destructive. It is what they become when challenged that concerns us. Zenith raised a hand for silence. Ambassador Johnson, your people saved Halixa 4 through tactics no Council species would have attempted. You ignored safety protocols, military doctrine, and conventional wisdom about what was possible. This adaptability is both your greatest strength and what makes you potentially dangerous. Beth Rivera stood beside Johnson. Grand Counselor, if I may speak. When Zenith nodded, she continued, You've studied our wars, but have you studied why we fought them? Humans fight fiercely to protect others, not just themselves. At Halix, therefore, our ships risked everything for a world not even our own. A noble sentiment, said Counselor Drav, but our simulations tell a different story. He activated another display showing complex mathematical models. If humanity were to feel truly threatened by the Council and fully mobilize for war, our projections suggest they could develop weapons and tactics beyond our ability to counter within a single generation. Johnson frowned. These simulations assume we would want to fight the Council. We don't. Not now, Zenith agreed. But what if you discovered that we have been systematically restricting your access to certain technologies? That we have placed hidden monitoring devices on your colonies? That we have contingency plans to contain your species if necessary? A shocked silence fell over the human delegation. Johnson stared at Zenith, then at Kelvik. Is this true? High Chancellor Kelvik's silver skin rippled with emotion. The Council must protect the peace of the galaxy. Sometimes this requires precautions. Precautions? Johnson's voice rose. You've been spying on us while claiming to welcome us. Kelvik raised his hands. Please understand, this is standard protocol for any species with your potential. Rivera touched Johnson's arm, urging restraint. What exactly are you proposing, Chancellor? It was Counselor Drav who answered. The Marshall Oversight Committee recommends severe restrictions on human expansion and technology access until proper safeguards can be implemented. We cannot risk another civilization with your capabilities developing unchecked. Johnson looked around the chamber, seeing fear in many alien faces. You're talking about containing us, limiting our growth because you're afraid of what we might become. We are afraid, Zenith admitted quietly, because we have seen what came before. The ruins you saw were once the homeworld of a species called the Precursors. Like you, they were adaptable, innovative, and fierce when threatened. When they felt the Council was limiting their potential, they began a war that lasted 3 centuries and left 1,000 worlds barren. The chamber fell silent again. Johnson exchanged a look with Rivera, both processing the implications of what they were hearing. The Council will vote tomorrow on the proposed restrictions, Kelvik announced. This session is adjourned. As the human delegation left the chamber, Rivera whispered to Johnson, This is worse than we thought. They're not just cautious about us, they're genuinely terrified. Johnson nodded grimly. And the worst part is, I'm not sure they're wrong to be afraid. If Earth learns about these secret monitoring programs and containment plans, Admiral, Wright won't take it well, Rivera finished. None of our military will. We need to contact Earth immediately, Johnson said. They need to know what we're facing. Unknown to them, Agent Mira watched from the shadows, recording their conversation, for the Council's growing file on human responses to perceived threats. 3 days after the emergency council session, Admiral Paul Wright stood in Earth's orbital command center, his face grim as he reviewed the information sent by Ambassador Johnson. At 60, with weathered features and steel-gray hair, Wright had seen his share of conflicts before taking command of Earth's defense forces. "They've been watching us like lab rats," he said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Setting up tests, keeping technology from us, planting surveillance on our colonies." General Susan Clark nodded. "And now they want to officially restrict our growth and development. The proposed measures would limit us to our current 3 colonies and ban research into 87 different technology areas. All because they're afraid of what we might do if provoked." Wright looked at the holographic display showing the location of Earth's small fleet. "How quickly can we ready the ships for deployment?" Clark raised an eyebrow. "You're not actually considering military action against the Council?" Wright's expression softened slightly. "No, but I want options if this turns ugly. The vote is tomorrow, and if these restrictions pass, we need to be prepared to protect our people." The communication panel chimed. "Admiral, there's an urgent message from the Europa colony. Some kind of natural disaster. They're requesting immediate assistance." Wright frowned. Europa was humanity's newest and most distant colony, home to nearly 1 million people. "Put it through." The screen showed the colony's governor, his face streaked with dust and what looked like blood. "Admiral, we've experienced a massive seismic event. The main habitat dome is failing. We have thousands trapped and injured. Our emergency systems are overwhelmed." "We'll dispatch relief ships immediately," Wright said. "Hold on, Governor." But as Wright began organizing the relief effort, another message arrived, this one from Ambassador Johnson. The Council had classified the Europa situation as a contained planetary emergency, and under the proposed security measures, was denying permission for additional human ships to enter that sector until Council inspectors could assess the situation. "This is insane," Wright exploded. "There are human lives at stake." "It's a test," Clark said quietly. "They want to see if we'll follow their rules even when our own people are dying." Wright's face hardened. "Well, they're about to get their answer. Ready all available ships. We're going to Europa, with or without their permission." Meanwhile, on Council Station Prime, a different sort of confrontation was unfolding. Catherine Lewis, a brilliant human scientist who had been working with Council researchers, stood before Counselor Neem. In the months since first contact, Neem had become humanity's strongest advocate on the Council. "You have to help us," Lewis pleaded. "The Europa colony needs immediate assistance. The Council's restrictions will cost thousands of lives." Neem's large eyes reflected genuine distress. "I understand your concern, Dr. Lewis, but the vote is tomorrow, and until then, the emergency protocols must be followed." "This isn't about protocols," Lewis insisted. "It's about lives. Real people with families who will die while bureaucrats debate." Something in her words seemed to reach Neem. After a moment's hesitation, the alien said, "There may be a way, but it involves meeting someone few humans have ever seen." Hours later, Lewis found herself in a section of the station she hadn't known existed. The corridors were ancient, with technology that looked nothing like the Council's current designs. Neem led her to a chamber where a being waited, tall, with features that seemed to shift and change as she looked at it. "I am the Elder One," the being said, its voice somehow inside Lewis's mind rather than reaching her ears. "One of the founders of what you now call the Galactic Council." Lewis stared in amazement. You created the Council?" "We formed it from necessity," the Elder One replied, "to prevent the galaxy from tearing itself apart again." A door opened, and Lewis was surprised to see Admiral Wright enter, accompanied by Ambassador Johnson. "We brought him through the emergency. Quantum communicator," Neem explained. "The Elder One wished to speak with your military leader directly." The Elder One gestured, and the chamber filled with holographic images, scenes of devastating warfare on a scale Lewis could barely comprehend. Entire planets burned. Star systems collapsed. Billions died in moments. This was the 3-century war, the Elder One said, started by a species called the Precursors, who shared many traits with humanity. Wright watched the images with a soldier's eye. What happened? The Precursors were innovative, adaptable. When they discovered the Council was restricting certain technologies, they rebelled. The war that followed nearly destroyed galactic civilization. The Elder One's form shifted again. We fear humans could follow the same path. Wright's eyes narrowed. So you decided to contain us before we could become a threat. We hope to integrate humanity gradually, the Elder One said. But your responses to our tests exceeded all projections. Your actions at Helix therefore demonstrated military thinking that hasn't been seen in the galaxy for millennia. We saved lives, Wright pointed out. Yes, through tactics our species would never attempt. Your willingness to take calculated risks, to improvise with limited resources, to ignore established protocols when necessary, these are powerful traits. The Elder One's form stabilized into something almost human. And they terrify many Council species. Lewis stepped forward. But these same traits could help the Council. We don't want war. We want to contribute. The Elder One studied her. Perhaps. But history suggests that species with your capabilities eventually clash with the established order when they feel constrained. Then don't constrain us. Right, said bluntly. Work with us as equals. The chamber fell silent. Finally, the Elder One spoke again. I have a proposal. I will help your Europa colony, immediately, using technology the Council rarely employs. In exchange, I ask that humanity agree to certain transparent safeguards, not hidden restrictions. What kind of safeguards? Wright asked suspiciously. Joint Human Council oversight of your most advanced research. Cultural exchange programs, to build understanding. And human representation on the Council's inner circle, where the true decisions are made. Lewis and Wright exchanged shocked looks. You're offering us a seat at the real table, Wright said slowly. With real power and responsibility, the Elder One confirmed. We cannot remove the fear many feel toward humanity's potential, but we can channel it into cooperation rather than containment. Johnson, who had been silent until now, asked, Why? Why offer this when the rest of the Council wants to restrict us? The Elder One's form shifted once more, showing glimpses of a civilization far more advanced than even the Council's current technology. Because the galaxy faces threats greater than you know. The Council's stagnation, our reliance on protocols, and predictability, may not be enough to face what is coming. Humanity's adaptability, properly directed, could be an asset rather than a threat. 2 days later, the full Council convened to vote on the human restrictions. But instead of the expected debate, they were shocked when the Elder One appeared. Something that happened perhaps once in a century, with Admiral Wright and Catherine Lewis at its side. The vote is cancelled, the Elder One announced. In its place, I propose a new covenant with humanity, not as subjects to be controlled, but as partners in galactic security. The Council erupted in surprise and confusion. Councillor Drav rose to object but faltered when the Elder One revealed the success of its intervention at Europa, where advanced technology had stabilized the colony without a single additional death. Humanity has something we have lost. The Elder One told the assembled Council, the ability to see beyond established patterns, to innovate when threatened, to bend without breaking. Yes, these traits make them potentially dangerous as enemies, but invaluable as allies. From the highest tier, Grand Councillor Zenith's glowing eyes studied the humans thoughtfully. Perhaps, the ancient being finally said, it is not humanity that must change to fit the Council, but the Council that must remember how to adapt. As the new agreement was drafted, Lewis found herself standing beside the Elder One. You never answered Admiral Wright's question fully, she said quietly. Why trust us when we could become like the Precursors? The Elder One's form shifted one final time, revealing a hint of something familiar in its features. Because unlike the Precursors, when humanity encountered other species, your first instinct was to save lives rather than take them. You risked your ships for aliens you barely knew. That suggests you might use your war capabilities differently than those who came before. As Lewis watched the council members debate the new arrangement, she realized the truth. What made humans formidable? In war was indeed what the council feared most, but it was also humanity's greatest gift to a galaxy that had forgotten how to change.